is Fabha Business Wari. I'm student and facilitator at Rehan School Online Academy, and we are watching the Pallete podcast. And as you all know, that in every podcast we have a new guest with us. And today I'm honored to welcome a powerhouse of positivity, a dynamic podcaster, visionary entrepreneur, inspiring keynote speaker. Please welcome Dr. Christie in the studio. Firstly, thank you so much for your precious time. And hello, how are you
I
doing?
am well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
It's great to have you. So, firstly, I would like to have your small introduction for me as well as for my viewers.
Sure. So I have been an educator for 26 years. In those 26 years, though, I started out teaching high school and then I transitioned to teaching adults. And what I discovered is what I was doing in the education space actually works in all business space as well, because I've figured out how to get people to listen to you and how to make people feel like they are safe to learn. So I have a formula called Learning Can Stick, and it means that you make every interaction safe, logical, fun, and memorable. And by doing that, adults will learn from you, students will learn from you, and people will leave your space knowing more than they came in. So that's what I've been doing for the last 26 years, or maybe for all of my years, depends on how you look at it.
Okay, that's pretty amazing. So, first question from me is that what is really inspired you to start your journey as a podcaster and entrepreneur?
Ooh, so I felt like I had a story to tell, but more importantly, I felt like I had a lot of really smart friends who had a story to tell as well. And so I started the podcast so that I could let other people see my friends in the same light I did. I wanted to feature them, I wanted to make sure that the world knew who they were and what they were all about. So that's how I started the podcast. And then it's bloomed into learning about people that I didn't already know and new friends and getting to know a really cool group of humans who are just trying to make the world a better place. So my podcast is called Productive Joy, and it is designed to help people figure out how to make work and fun the same thing.
Okay, that's cool. So, my next question is that can you share the moment when you realized you wanted to become a keynote speaker?
Yeah. So my father is an entertainer. That he had his own show in Las Vegas in the 70s and 80s, and he's just an entertainer by nature. So I grew up in the entertainment business, but I wanted to be a teacher. So I combined those two things into being a very entertaining teacher that has turned into a keynote speaker. So I have a lot of fun in the space, and I make sure that I am making people laugh, making people learn, and letting the people do the talking. So, the way I do my keynote speeches is very unconventional, meaning that the audience does more talking than I do. And that's by design, because I do know that the person doing the talking is the person doing the learning. So I make sure that people leave knowing something, and I really enjoy it.
Okay. So, my next question is that how did your role as an educator influence the other aspects of your career?
So, good question. And I would say that I am an educator, like in my blood. Like I can't not be. And so it really has impacted every part of my career, because I let the desire to make people better. When I meet people, I really want to leave them better than I found them, and I lead with that in every circumstance. So whether I'm running a meeting at work or I am meeting somebody on the street, that's my goal. And so what that's done for me in my space is it's allowed me to take education and meet it with business so that people can walk away knowing something they didn't already know. So I can't separate the two.
Okay. So, my next question is that what's the most powerful story or moment you have shared on your podcast?
Ooh, on my podcast? Oh my goodness. I have had so many cool guests. So I have about 160 episodes published, but I have almost 200 recorded. And so I have had so the way that my system works is I have two guests a week and then one with just me. And I think I, I've had lots of really influential guests. I'm going to say that the one that has been most powerful for me, her name is Amy Kemp, and she wrote a book called I See You, and she does something with an assessment called the Habit Finder, where you figure out a little bit more about what makes you make the decisions that you make and drives you. And in doing her habit finder, I realized I needed her help. And so I enrolled in a coaching course with her that lasted over 4 months. And I learned so many things that I probably already knew but had forgotten or hadn't applied to all stages of my life during that interview and then those subsequent coaching sessions. So I would say that she was my most influential guest because it changed me as a person. And then I've of course had guests that other people have reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, this one was amazing." So it's been a lot of fun. It's a tough question, but I'm going to go with Amy Kemp.
Okay. So, my next question is that how do you prepare for your keynote speeches and how do you tailor them for different
Oh,
audiences?
great question. So I like to find out what their goals are. My question is always like when I get hired to be a keynote speaker, I ask them, what will it look like if this is successful? And I wait and listen for that response. And when I get that response, I build my content around that. So if they say, I really want people to leave energized about making work fun, okay, great. Then I can hit that target. I really want people to know how to run a better meeting. Okay, I can hit that target. Sometimes keynote speeches are canned, meaning they're always exactly the same. Mine have the same elements, but they're going to be different based on what the desired outcome is. So when I'm preparing, my first question is, what will it look like if this is successful? And then I backwards map from there. And I would say people should do that in all circumstances, whether you're planning a meeting or you are just having a conversation with a friend. What will it look like if this is successful?
Okay, that's pretty amazing. My next question is that what makes a podcast truly memorable in your opinion?
Hmm. I think the best podcasts are ones that have something actionable that you can do right away. So I try really hard to pull out nuggets of wisdom from the podcast. And I always ask the question at the end of every podcast, if people could only remember one thing from this conversation, what's the one thing you really want people to remember? That way, it's being said a second time for the mind to grab onto because our brains don't hold on to everything we hear. But when something's repeated more than once, we do. So I try really hard to help people grab onto that nugget and actually be able to use it. Because the other thing to remember is if people don't change practice, it was a waste of time, right? So I have a company called AIM, and that stands for Analyze, Improve, Move. You analyze your current systems. Where are we right now? What are we doing right now? That would be like you saying, okay, I'm running this podcast and here's how I do it right now, and here's what's working well and here's what isn't. The improve is where I come in and help people make it safe, logical, fun, and memorable, like I mentioned before. But then the move is the part people don't do. That's where you have to change practice. You can't keep doing it the way you've always done it and expect different results. That's the definition of insanity. So instead, you have to analyze where you are, improve on it, and then change practice, move. So I try to make sure that that's what's happening at the end of each podcast, at the end of each keynote, that people are left with a challenge so that they can actually hit the target that they set out to hit.
Okay, that's really thoughtful of you, I would say. So, my next question is that what challenges did you face in building your own brand or business and how did you overcome them?
I'm still facing them, right? Figuring out how to get in front of the right audience. figuring out where to put my energy, right? So, trying to keep up with all the different social media platforms and put out new content daily, and what content do people want to see, and how can I make sure they see it? So it's really about prioritizing my time and figuring out where to focus my energy and my time. That's been the biggest challenge. How have I overcome it? I have learned my unique genius, and I try to stay in that lane. So I can create great content, and I need somebody to tell me, Christy, record this video. It should be this long and then put it out on Thursday. Great. To come up with that, that's where I struggle. So I've learned to delegate the things that kept falling off of my to-do list because they probably didn't belong on my list. They belonged on somebody else's. And so I've learned to do that. And then I've also learned to let others around me operate in their unique genius too, right? So if I have a team member who is really, really good at knowing when to post, what to post, and what time to post, I'm going to let them do that. And I'll just be the voice, right? So it's understanding the people around you and getting really good at letting them shine.
Okay, that's great. My next question is that what does being an entrepreneur mean to you in today's fast-paced world?
It means being your own boss and working all the time. Right? Meaning you don't walk away from the job when it is yours and yours alone, and it rises and falls on you, which means that it has to be something that you love. If you're trying to become an entrepreneur about something that you just sort of like or maybe don't like at all, that's going to be a problem. Instead, you want to focus on something that is legitimately a passion, something that you genuinely enjoy, and then maybe you'll have the energy to just go all in.
Okay, so my next question is that I'm really curious that right now you're into so many careers, like you're doing a lot of stuff. So, like when you were younger, when you were a kid, what's one profession was in your mind that you really wanted to
Hmm.
pursue?
Such a fun question. I knew I wanted to be a teacher, period. But I always said I would teach during the year and I would entertain in the summers, meaning being on stage and doing something fun. I used to love to sing and perform. And so I think what's cool is I have found a way for those two things to come together where I get to both entertain and teach almost every single day. So I think I'm living out my dream of what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Okay, that's really amazing. You're already living your dream. So, my next question is that how do you balance like creativity and business strategy in your entrepreneurial
Oh,
ventures?
so you have to know what your priorities are, and you also have to know where your strengths lie, right? Because I can be incredibly creative in certain spaces, but there are other spaces that I have zero creativity, and that's because that's not my unique genius. So it's figuring out what I am really creative and good at, and then where I need somebody else to be that creative voice. The productivity part, though, there is a great book by Carey Nieuwhof called At Your Best. And in the book, At Your Best, he talks about red, yellow, and green zones. So we all have them every day. And this is when our brain functions at different levels. During our green zones, which is usually like 4 to 6 hours a day, we are our most creative, we're our most brilliant, we are able to just crank things out. And those aren't necessarily consecutive hours. It might be 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night, but we all have moments where we're really good at getting stuff done. We need to protect that green zone really fiercely so that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish then. Our yellow zone is more like 8 to 10 to maybe 12 hours a day. And that's when we should be doing things that don't require our best. Answering emails, sitting in meetings, going to the grocery store, those kinds of things. And then we have our red zones, usually twice a day at least, 30 minutes where we need to take a nap or a walk. We are legitimately hitting that wall and we aren't very creative at all. And so, if you try to do something that is green zone related, like not practicing, but preparing for a podcast, for example, if we try to do that in our yellow or red zone, what happens is it takes somewhere between 3 and 5 times as long. So if that task should take us 15 minutes, now all of a sudden it takes 45 minutes or an hour and a half. And the problem with that is, who has an extra hour and a half in their day? Nobody. So we're wasting our time because we're doing things in the wrong zone. So your question was about creativity and productivity and how those things kind of come together. I think they come together when you know your green zones and you protect them and actually produce during those times.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing this. Actually, it was really informative. It's my first time hearing about these things, and now I can see that that's really true. Like when sometimes we are like in our comfort zone, and even though we have to work with our full brain, but still we are like in our yellow zone and we are just chilling there. And I can tell that it takes longer time, and then I see like I should be doing putting more effort into it, so it didn't took this much
Right,
time.
because we scroll
So
on our
thank you
phone
for
or we just
sharing.
get distracted or we stare at the screen, right? And we've all had it happen. That's because your brain needs a break. Mhm.
Yes, exactly. I totally agree. So my next question is that as an educator extraordinaire, what teaching philosophy do you live by?
Two things. The brilliance is in the room, and the person doing the talking is the person doing the learning. So, what does that mean? The brilliance is in the room. I don't ever assume that the people I'm talking to don't know things, because they do. They know all kinds of things. And sometimes educators assume that they're the ones that hold all the information. And I don't believe that to be true. I think that we're facilitators of information and we're facilitators of learning, but we shouldn't be the keeper of the information. We should let those we're talking to discover the information. And then the person doing the talking is the person doing the learning means, if I want somebody to really remember something, they need to say it, not me. So if I say it right now, right, like I'm saying it to you and to all of your listeners, that's great. But if I were with you, I would have you then say it back to me, which I'm going to do in just a second. So be ready. But what is the thing that you're holding on to? What's the thing that you want to know more about? Because if I assume that I can say it and everybody else will get it, then that's a really bad assumption. So here's my question to you. What's something that I've said so far that you went, yeah, okay, that makes sense? And it could be anything that I've said so far. Is there anything I've said that made sense?
It just did. The concept that you just explained, I was really interested in listening to it. All of it, like my mind was, I was just checking my questions, and the moment you start like talking about explaining that thing, I was totally like concentrate that that's something I really need to know. So that was so far that was something that really like clicked my mind.
Good, good.
Okay, so my next question is that what advice would you give to young educators who want to make a lasting impact?
Relationships trump everything. If you don't get to know your students, you will never teach them anything. So get to know them as humans first. The way that I look at teaching is it's humans working with humans. Period. I don't care what you teach. You teach humans. You teach human science or you teach humans math, but you teach humans. If you don't build relationships, if you don't let people know that they matter, if you don't talk to them like real people, don't try to teach them anything. It's just not going to work.
Okay, so my next question is that you describe yourself as a fun generator. What does fun mean in a professional
Oh, I'm
setting
so
for you?
glad you asked. I have a very specific definition of fun, because fun means something different to everyone, right? Like I might think it's fun to go horseback riding, and you might think that's a terrible idea because you're scared of horses, right? So I think that fun means three things. Fun means people feel valued and appreciated. Fun means people have a voice and they're allowed to use that voice for change. And fun means that people are able to leverage their talents for the greater good. So, in a work setting, in a personal setting, it's fun for people to say thank you, right? Valued and appreciated. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for asking me to be on your podcast. Thank you for choosing to learn from me or with me. And then giving them a voice. Sometimes it's as simple as, we're going to work on this one pager. You can hold your paper this way or this way. I don't care. That gives people some choice in what they're doing. We often try to control everything, and the reality is we can't, because by nature, as humans, we want to have some say in what we're doing. And then the leveraging people's talents for the greater good goes back to one of the questions you asked me earlier about how do I operate, and how am I successful in what I'm doing? Well, I find the people who are good at things that are different from me, right? I surround myself with people who think differently than me, who are able to execute differently than me, instead of assuming that I have all the brilliance, because I don't. So it's super important, if you're trying to have fun, to let people operate in that unique genius, right? So if you're really good at planning the party, I'm going to let you plan it, and I'm going to be the entertainment once we get there. Just letting people do what they're made to do is indeed fun.
Oh, I totally agree with you, because I also believe that even in the like when you're with friends and just hanging out, like making sure that everyone is included is really important, because if you are having fun, it doesn't mean the other person is having fun. And I have seen that people, like as you said, that most of people just try to take all the power to themselves. They're just, if they are having fun, they're okay with it. They don't care that if the people surrounding them is having fun or not. So I totally agree with these steps, that making sure that everyone is including and giving everyone voice is definitely really
You're
important.
right.
So my next question is that how do you maintain high energy and enthusiasm in your daily work? I really want to know this question, because so far you are more energetic than me. I'm the host right now, but I feel like you are just adding more power to this
Oh, you
podcast.
sweet thing. Thank you. This is legit just who I am, right? So I am a bold flavor, a whole lot of energy, but I've learned that that's okay, right? And I've also learned that when I choose to be excited about something, others will join me with that excitement. So it's a choice every day. I'm going to wake up and I am going to go all in, right? I think the other thing that allows me to be energetic is that I am genuinely curious. So, right now, you're learning how to be a podcaster, and you're learning how to interview people, and you're learning how to put your message out into the world, which is awesome. And you're doing a great job. And you've clearly done your homework to figure out what to ask me, which is awesome. So, kudos to you. The enthusiasm comes from natural curiosity. Just like you just asked me, you said, I really want to know this, right? Like I really want to know the answer to how you stay energetic. And honestly, you just did it. You naturally wanted to know. So don't ask questions you don't care about the answers to. Ask questions that you really care about. And then all of a sudden, it's not work. It's an opportunity to learn about the person you're talking to. That's my biggest piece of advice, because some things are energy givers and other things are energy suckers, right? Like they take energy from you. Look for the things that give you energy and focus on those, so that the things that take it away aren't able to deplete you completely. You do have to do some things that you don't love, but if your tank is full, right? If you have deposited enough energy into it, then those things don't feel so draining. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does make sense. My next question is that what are your go-to activities for creating a joyful and engaging environment?
Okay, that's where safe, logical, fun, and memorable comes in. Okay, so safe does not mean that nobody is going to trip over a cord, right? Safe is psychological safety. So when I meet people for the first time, I make sure I learn their name. I make sure I learn something about them. I make sure that I am able to make them feel as though they can ask questions without being reprimanded, and that there are no wrong answers. Because when we feel safe, we let our guard down a little bit and we become learners, right? So, safe. Logical means that I have a plan, I stick to the plan, but I'm not the only one that has the plan, right? I let people know what they can expect. We're going to be together for 30 minutes. And in these 30 minutes, we're going to ask this many questions, and this is what's going to happen. Because by nature, our brains need an anchor. They need to know what to expect so that they can move on and not get fixated on, oh my gosh, I feel like I don't know what to expect. So I definitely make sure that people know what to expect. And then the fun, as I mentioned, people feel valued and appreciated, and they have a voice, and they're able to leverage their talents. But the memorable part is important too. I don't say things once. So what you'll notice about me, even in a 30-minute video, is I'm going to repeat some things with intentionality. And that's because we need to sprinkle, splash, flood, drip, drip, drip information. Okay, so the sprinkle splash is kind of like a preview to a movie where we just throw something in to say, ooh, get excited about this, right? It might be an email before a meeting. The flood is the meeting or the interview or the event where all the information comes at you really, really fast, like water does in a flood. The problem with a flood is that you lose most of that water in runoff. You don't want that to happen. You want people to remember what you said. So you drip, drip, drip information. That's a follow-up email. That's a phone call afterwards. That's a thank you where people are remembering who you are. So if you do that, then you're not only memorable, but people will grab on to whatever you were trying to teach them.
Okay. Oh, that's really thoughtful. And my next question is that what's one bold goal you're currently working towards?
A bold goal that I am currently working towards is being able to be in this space where I'm running the intentionality group and getting my podcast out into the world. And that is my full-time job because I still have a full-time job. This is all something that I'm doing part-time. And my bold goal is to be able to go full-time.
Okay. And lastly, what legacy do you hope people remember you for?
Ooh. I want people to remember me as someone who brightens a room with purpose, right? So I actually have a Post-it note. I will show it to you that says "Perky with Purpose." um, when when people meet me, they often say, "Oh, you have so much energy," and that's true. And I want them to notice that first, but then I want them to notice that I also brought value to the room, right? So the legacy that I'm trying to leave is that fun and productivity don't need to be mutually exclusive. They can actually happen together, where all that energy and all that excitement leads to learning.
Okay, so this was supposed to be my last question, but I still have one
Okay.
question in my mind. So, that question is that as you're so energetic, the question that I really want to ask you that I try my best to stay as energetic as I can and like make my environment happy and energetic and like enjoying, but you know that there are some times like maybe some hours in a day or maybe some days when you are really on low battery and you are just sad and some things don't go on your way. So how do you tackle those hours or those
Ooh,
days?
I'm really glad you asked, and that's an important question. You cannot pour from an empty cup. What that means is if you are not ever recharging your batteries, then you are pouring from an empty cup, right? You are like you said, your batteries are on low. So, what fills your cup? That's the first thing you have to figure out. What energizes me? So, I get up really early in the morning, every morning to exercise because that's my time. I love it. I meet a group of girls at a particular, it's called Burn Boot Camp. And I'm there at 5:30 in the morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed because that's my time. If I don't get that, my day is off, right? I need that time to refill me. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is to be thoughtful about avoiding the things that drain your battery. It's not that you don't ever have to do them, it's that you can minimize how they affect you by not letting it consume your entire day. And then I think the third thing that I would say with that is recognizing that it's a moment and not a whole day, right? So we might have a moment where we're like, oh, I have to deal with that person. I don't like that person. And that's awful. But that's 30 minutes of a 24-hour day. How am I going to let that 30 minutes roll off my back so that I can go do something fun? Maybe it's as simple as going outside afterwards and taking 5 deep breaths. right? Or taking your shoes off and standing in the grass and just grounding yourself, or drinking a cup of tea that really makes you happy and actually sitting and staring at the wall and not doing anything else, because you can recharge quickly, right? As long as you catch it early. So don't wait until the end of the day to refill your cup. Make sure that you're refilling it as you go.
Okay, so let me take an advantage of having a podcaster on this
Yeah.
interview. So, what advice would you have for me as a host of a podcast? That, like, as a host, what a person should have in their mind? The question, what type of question they should ask? What type of environment they should try to create when they are having maybe a professional or maybe general podcast with someone?
So you did it a couple times, and I think you're a natural at it. And so I want to give you permission to throw away your script. So you did a beautiful job of preparing for this. You clearly researched me, you knew about me, you knew what you wanted to ask me, and you had a bank of questions. Always do that. And then recognize that I might say something that makes you go in a totally different direction. Be okay with that and say, all right, I was supposed to ask 10 questions, but I'm only going to ask 6 because I want to dig deeper, and let your natural curiosity take over. So I have certain questions I always ask, but I don't prepare much more than that, other than to Facebook stalk / internet stalk the person and find out some stuff, right? So that I know that, they're an author and they're a podcaster or whatever. But let your natural curiosity take over, and people love it. The people you're interviewing love it, and the people that are listening love it, because it goes from a list of questions to an authentic conversation between two people, and people eat that up. So you did it probably 3 different times, and it was perfect, where you were like, "Oh, wait, I see that. I see that green zone, yellow zone, red zone thing happening to me all the time. Can you tell me what to do about it?" Right? That wasn't a scripted question. That was a real question. So that would be my encouragement to you, is that trust your unique genius. You have it, and just trust it, and be okay if you don't ask all the questions. Does that make sense?
Yes, it. I took a lot of your time, but thank you once again. I really, really enjoyed this conversation
Me
with
too.
you. It was fun, informative, both, and thank you once again.
You are so welcome. I loved it, and I think you're doing a fabulous job. Keep this up.
Thank you so much. So, okay, everyone, I will end my podcast over here. We'll meet in another podcast with a new guest. I hope you all enjoyed this podcast as much as I did, and I'll see you in my another podcast. Till then, Allah Hafiz, and